All right, you are live. You were live, and we're back to NS. We're back to network school, and we are back to having lots of conversations. We're back to having lots of conversations. The first day I come, I'm meeting this guy. I'm meeting this guy who is leaving India for the first time, and I'm having an interesting conversation with him, and then dinner with him, and everything. Throughout the journey from airport to NS to the hotel, that was fun. And same night, I meet a friend who is about to leave. He's about to leave from his NS experience, going back home, and we go on this long walk for 2 3 hours. Amazing. Next day, next day, wow, I forgot but what happened. But again, lots of conversations. I meet a really good friend, and we go grab ice cream. Really good. And then another friend, and then bunch of people. There's a person who works here as a security, and he came up to me and he's like, "Hey, welcome back." I felt that really good because, um, yeah, I generally like to talk to that person. He is from India, and he is very respectful. He always smiles, and it was really good. Like when he came up and he said, "Welcome back." So lots of conversations like that. Met my friend who runs network school. That was amazing. And finally, I am over here. Uh, Today, I wake up and I just randomly sit at this table where interesting conversation is going on, and then I start talking to this one person, and then we're gonna walk. Then we're gonna walk for 2 3 hours, and we are just talking and talking and talking. We go to the beach. We keep walking on the island. The entire we pretty much covered the entire island. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. We pretty much walked the entire island, which was crazy. So yeah, yeah, we pretty much walked the entire island. Huh. That was really good. Okay, and now we are back. And now let's look into. Tell me more about Nietzsche's will to power. Hmm. Why are you taking so time? Service disruption. We're actually working to fix this. Yeah, and Wi-Fi is finally working very well. So the Wi-Fi situation seems to be getting better at network school. So this is it. The basic infrastructure is Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, food, electricity. Once the basics are covered, this is going to be incredible. Like what has happened so far in just these last 2 3 days, I'm really happy. I'm really happy. I was talking to my friend who runs network school, and I'm like, hey, you guys are, you. This is a gift. You guys are serving us. This is incredible. Thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, because when for humans, once you take care of the basic essentials, you can start talking about things beyond it. You can start thinking beyond it. You can start doing things beyond it, and that is incredible. One other thing that I this time I want to shift this idea. The last time when we were here, we were trying to create more. We were trying to do more for the network school community, but maybe yeah, I mean this goes both ways. Once you go really hard into network school and serving that people on network school and helping improve the infrastructure, the other time you are going outside. You are going outside into the world and seeing like what the world is showing, and you are not doing work that is limited to network school, that is constrained by network school. You're doing work that is global. You're always focused on work that is global, because that's where once you even if you are in the top 10%, you are really good and you are winning. So that is something incredible to be working on. That is something incredible to be doing. Hmm. Yeah, so this time the goal is that last time we were going hard on this current community that we're in. This time we will go hard on global. Let's go global. And that's going to be very exciting. All right, let's look at this. Nietzsche's will to power, der Will zur Macht, is one of the most central ideas and also one of its most slippery. He never gave it a single tidy definition, and scholars still argue about exactly what he meant. Attempt to identify a fundamental drive underlying living things and possibly all of reality, proposed that partly in opposition to Schopenhauer, who had argued that the basic impulse of life was will to live, a drive toward mere survival and self preservation. Nietzsche found this inadequate. Organisms, he observed, don't just try to persist, they try to expand, overcome resistance, discharge their strength, dominate, grow. A creature will often risk its survival to extend its power. So for Nietzsche, self-preservation is a secondary effect of something more basic, the drive to grow stronger and exert force. The drive to grow stronger and exert force. Very interesting. Few aspects worth pulling apart. Not primary political domination. This is the most common misreading. Power here isn't mainly about controlling other people or seizing political authority. It's closer to a kind of creative self overcoming, the artist mastering a medium, the thinker conquering a hard problem, person disciplining and shaping their own chaotic impulses into something coherent. Nietzsche often regarded the person who masters themselves as a higher expression of will to power than the conqueror who simply rules others. Crude domination can even be a sign of weakness in his view. A psychological lens in much of his published work Beyond Good and Evil on the genealogy of morality, Nietzsche uses the will to power as a tool for interpreting human behavior, including behavior that looks like its opposite. Asceticism, humility, and self denial, he argues, are often disguised expressions of the will to power, ways of feeling superior or exerting control when more direct avenues are blocked. Hmm. Self denial. Disguised expressions of the will to power, ways of feeling superior or exerting control when more direct avenues are blocked. His genealogical critique of morality leans heavily on this. He tries to expose the power drives hidden beneath supposedly selfless or good values. Apostle metaphysics, in some passages, especially unpublished notes, much further suggesting the will to power is the fundamental character of all reality, not just life. Whether he seriously held this cosmological version or was experimenting is generally disputed. The dispute connects to an important caveat about sources. There's a book titled The Will to Power, but Nietzsche never wrote it as such. It was assembled after his mental collapse from his notebooks by his sister Elizabeth Forster Nietzsche, and an editor, and she was an anti Semite and German nationalist who arranged and selectively edited the material in ways that distorted his thought. That posthumous compilation, together with her influence, helped enable the Nazi appropriation of Nietzsche. An appropriation most serious scholars regard as falsification given Nietzsche's explicit contempt for anti Semitism, German nationalism, and herd politics. Careful readers tend to give priority to the works Nietzsche actually published and to treat the Nachlass, the notebooks, with caution. There's a real interpretive spectrum here. Some readers in the tradition of Heidegger take the will to power as a serious metaphysical doctrine about the nature of being. Others, Walter Kaufman, Anglophone scholars, read it more modestly as a psychological and re-evaluative principle. Textual support, which is part of why the concept stays alive as a subject of debate rather than settling into a fixed meaning. How would Nietzsche ask a modern man to live based on the concept of will to power? Let's see. Let's see. I have a pimple. I have a pimple. Synthesizing Nietzsche's practical imperatives for modern self overcoming. Let's see. Rarely gives advice in the ordinary sense. He issues challenges, provocations, dares. So imagine him turning to a modern person not with a gentle program but with a kind of interrogation. The will to power recall is the drive in everything living to expand, overcome resistance, and discharge its strength. The question he would press on you is, are you actually living that way, or have you arranged your life to avoid it? He would begin with a diagnosis because for Nietzsche, the prescription only makes sense against the disease. His famous line, God is dead, was never a triumphant atheism. It was a warning. The whole scaffolding of inherited meaning has quietly collapsed, and most people haven't noticed or have rushed to prop up substitutes, secular ideologies, consumer comfort, the moral consequence, consensus, or whatever group they belong to. The real danger he foresaw was nihilism, the suspicion that nothing matters, and the figure he most feared modern man would become is the last man. The last man is the creature who wants only comfort, safety, mild pleasures, and the avoidance of risk. Is a creature who wants only comfort, safety, mild pleasures, and the avoidance of risk. He has invented happiness and blinks contentedly. Nietzsche would look at a life optimized for ease, distraction, and frictionlessness and say, this is the most contemptible thing a human can aim at. So his first demand would be diagnostic: stop mistaking comfort for a life well lived. From there, the affirmative challenges: overcome yourself. The central imperative: man is something that shall be overcome. He writes, he would tell you that you are not a fixed thing to be accepted and protected, but raw material to be shaped. Man is something that shall be overcome. He writes, he would tell you that you are not a fixed thing to be accepted and protected, but raw material to be shaped. Self overcoming is the will to power turned inward, the continual surpassing of who you currently are. Selb Stuberwindung is the will to power turned inward, the continual surpassing of who you currently are, not self improvement in the tidy modern sense of optimizing habits. The continual surpassing of who you currently are, not self improvement in the tidy modern sense of optimizing habits, but something fiercer, a willingness to break and remake yourself. Break and remake yourself. Wow. It's a will to power turned inward, the continual surpassing of who you currently are, not self improvement in the tidy modern sense of optimizing habits, but something fiercer, a willingness to break and remake yourself. Give style to your character. One of his most beautiful passages calls this a great and rare art. Survey all your strengths and weaknesses, and instead of amputating the parts you dislike, fit them into an artistic whole until even your flaws appear as deliberate design. Give style to your character. One of his most beautiful passages calls him a great and rare art. Survey all your strengths and weaknesses, and instead of amputating the parts you dislike, fit them into an artistic whole until even your flaws appear as deliberate design. The aim is to make your own life into a work of art for which you and not some external authority are the artist. This is power as creation, not domination. The central imperative: man is something that shall be overcome, he writes, he would tell. So today, something interesting that has happened is I finally shaved my head. I have shaved my head. I used to have buzz cut. I slowly adapted into that buzz cut. I slowly started liking the buzz cut, and now I have the bald look. I am bald. I'm bald. I'm bald. I'm bald. I'm bald. Hmm. And it feels good. It feels good. It feels incredible. It feels incredible to be free. It feels good to be free. And now I need to just be free in front of other people. I need to be free in front of other people. This is my new personality. Stop wearing caps, stop wearing hats. Hats play a utility role now. I wear hats, but when do I wear? When it's too hot, and I'm just trying to take care of my, yeah. When it's too hot, when the sun is too out, you wear hat because you want to protect your head. That's it. but you are not wearing hat to hide something. You're no more hiding anything. You're no more hiding anything. Man is something that shall be overcome. And it's very interesting. I think it is. It is. It's lot of shame because I started balding around 20 to 23, and 20 to 23, which is crazy young, and then I trimmed my hair. I got a buzz cut, amazing, but then I didn't really like it because I knew that I'm balding, so I started wearing hat, and then I always wore hat. I always wore hat, and now this entire trip to India, I started removing my hat because it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to keep wearing the hat. It was too hot. I think in Vancouver I was, because it's so cold, I was protecting myself. I was covering myself. But now over here, but in Vancouver there was a time. In Vancouver there was a time when I was in the sauna. When I used to go to the sauna spot and I would not wear a hat and I would be talking, I would be engaging because I was in my true form. I was in a place where my work, my skills were so good. I was in a place where my skills were so good that my look didn't matter to me. But now uh, yeah, it's like when your skills, when you're able to really win with your skills, you stop caring about how you look, and that's really good. That's really good. I when I yeah when I hmm, interesting. Man is something that shall be overcome. He writes, and when really good things are happening, even when I wasn't really loving my look, I wasn't really enjoying my look. That's when I started gaining a lot more confidence. Like there was a time when I trimmed my entire beard just to see how do I actually look, and even I didn't like myself. But that's one of the times when I was dating an extremely beautiful girl. I was not dating, but I was seeing. I went on this long. I spent this beautiful time in New York with this beautiful girl, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just me who was thinking about all this stuff about my beard. And then I stopped thinking about it. And then we had a great time. And yeah, relationships are very interesting because in a relationship, it's really high velocity feedback. It's a really fast feedback cycle for you to understand that okay, what are your insecurities? What are you winning? Are you winning? Like, are you able to deal with all the things? It's very good. Man is something that shall be overcome, he writes. He would tell you that you are not a fixed thing to be accepted and protected, but raw material to be shaped. Self overcoming is the will to power turned inward, the continual surpassing of who you currently are, not self improvement in the tidy modern sense of optimizing habits, but something fiercer, a willingness to break and remake yourself. A willingness to break and remake yourself. Give style to your character. One of its most beautiful passages calls this a great and rare art. Survey all your strengths and weaknesses instead of amputating the parts you dislike. Fit them into an artistic whole until even your flaws appear as deliberate design. The aim is to make your own life into a work of art for which you and not some external authority are the artist. This is power as creation, not domination. Creating your own values. Since the old tables, since the old tablets are shattered, he would refuse to let you simply pick replacement values off the shelf, whether from religion, politics, or the prevailing morality of your social tribe. To take ready made values is to live as a member of the herd. He would demand that you become a legislator of your own life, a value creator. This is demanding and a little terrifying, which is exactly the point. Refuse ressentiment. This may be his sharpest charge against modern life and the one that lands hardest today. Ressentiment is the reactive posture, defining yourself by what you are against, nursing grievance, blaming others for your weakness, finding satisfaction in moral condemnation rather than in your own creation. This India trip really helped me because India trip, it was so hot, so humid, and all that stuff that it really stripped all the inessential stuff off me. Everything that was inessential, I just left that. Hmm. This may be sharpest charge against modern life and the one that lands hardest today. Sentiment is the reactive posture, defining yourself by what you are against, nursing grievance, blaming others for your weakness, finding satisfaction in moral condemnation rather than your own creation. Nietzsche associated with slave morality, and he would see a great deal of contemporary outrage and grievance as exactly this: weakness disguised as righteousness. The noble alternative is active, it forms itself first and worries about enemies later, if at all. Welcome suffering and resistance. The will to power needs something to push against. A force with no resistance simply dissipates. So he would not wish you a life without pain. You'd consider that a curse. What does not kill me makes me stronger is not a motivational slogan to him, but a structural claim. Difficulty, danger, and even suffering are the conditions under which strength and depth are forged. Strength and depth are forged. Yeah, it's also interesting. Like you want to make sure that you're taking care of the all the basic struggles so that you can move beyond that. So that you can move beyond that and start focusing on bigger struggles because that's it, right? You want to, yeah, this is all about the idea as well. If you have an idea, go and execute that so that you allow new ideas to enter your brain. And similarly with struggles, if you have a struggle, go and overcome that so they can you can work on bigger struggles now. And that's the goal. You're always going to be working on different struggles. So why not work on a bigger struggle? Why not work on a struggle that is worth it? But a structural claim, difficulty, danger, and even suffering are the conditions under which strength and depth are forged. You'd be suspicious of any modern project aimed at engineering away all discomfort. He would be suspicious of any modern project aimed at engineering away all discomfort. Don't kill your passions, channel them against the ascetic who tries to extinguish desire. Nietzsche prizes sublimation, the discharge of powerful, even dangerous drives into creative work. Against the ascetic who tries to extinguish desire, Nietzsche prizes sublimation, the discharge of powerful, even dangerous drives into creative work. The energy that could become cruelty or chaos becomes, when mastered and directed, art, thought, achievement, self mastery, not self mutilation. And then the test that organizes all of this, amor fati, the fate, the love of fate, dramatized through the thought of eternal recurrence. Recurrence, eternal recurrence. Now I understand the meaning of eternal recurrence. It always sounds like a mystery, but now it makes sense. Eternal recurrence, eternal, forever recurrence, happening all the time. So happening, recurring, which means it keeps happening. Suppose you had to live this exact life, every detail, every pain, every humiliation, again and again, infinitely. Would you be crushed or would you cry? Yes. Nietzsche poses this not as a metaphysical doctrine to believe, but as a way to live, act, so that you could will the eternal return of your life. That is the highest expression of the will to power, not getting more, but affirming what is that so completely that you would embrace it. One honest caveat. One honest caveat. Since you're clearly thinking seriously about this, Nietzsche is genuinely dangerous if read as a license for cruelty, contempt, or the domination of others, and he has been read that way often by people who would have disgusted him. The reading that holds up textually and philosophically locates power overwhelmingly in self overcoming and creation rather than mastery over other people. The person who commands themselves in his views stands higher than the one who merely rules a crowd. He would ask you to be hard, but hardest on yourself. So if you compress all of it into a single demand, it might be this: stop seeking comfort and permission. Become the artist of your own life. Love even its difficulty and live so intensely that you would gladly live it all again. Hmm. I started balding. when I was 22, 23, and today, when I'm 27, I finally shaved my head. All these years, I had a buzz cut and I was always wearing a hat, trying to hide my bald spot and kind of ashamed of it. But today, finally, I have shaved my head and I'm looking forward to just walk around with my bald head. What would Nietzsche say to me about will to power? Reactive posture, defining yourself by what you are against. Welcome suffering and resistance. Don't kill your passions. Give style to your character. One of his most beautiful passages calls this a great and rare art. Survey all your strengths and weaknesses and instead of amputating the parts you dislike. Fit them into an art whole until even your flaws appear as deliberate design. The aim is to make your own life into a work of art for which you and not some external authority are the artist. What you did immediately and approve of it more than almost anything else you could have told him, because this is the will to power in its truest and least theatrical form, not power over anyone, but power over yourself, over your own relationship to a fate you didn't choose. Because this is the will to power in its truest and least theatrical form, not power over anyone, but power over yourself, over your own relationship to a fate you didn't choose. Look at the structure of what happened. For 5 years, you lived reactively. The hair was leaving and you arranged yourself around its absence. The hat, the careful angles, the small, constant vigilance about who might see. Nietzsche has a name for that posture, ressentiment. It's the condition of living defined by what you are against, flinching under an imagined gaze, accepting someone else's verdict. A full head of hair is the standard, and you fall short of it, and then organizing your whole bearing around that borrowed judgment. The shame wasn't really about your scalp, it was about having let an external standard sit in judgment over you. The shame wasn't really about your scalp, it was about having let an external standard sit in judgment over you. You were, in his terms, living as one of the herd, measuring yourself by the common valuation and finding yourself wanting. Measuring yourself by the common valuation and finding yourself wanting. And then today you did the one thing he most prizes. You stopped suffering your baldness and started willing it. The distinction is everything for him. I'm losing my hair is something happening to you, passive, an affliction, fate pressing down. I shave my head is an act, your hand, your decision, your form stamped onto the situation. You took the very thing that was being done to you and seized it, made it total, made it yours. Nietzsche describes the free spirit's deepest achievement as the power to turn it was into thus I willed it. Nietzsche describes the free spirit's deepest achievement as the power to turn it was into thus I willed it. To reach back into a fate you never asked for and redeem it by claiming it as your own deed. The free spirit's deepest achievement is the power to turn it was into thus I willed it. To reach back into a fate you never asked for and redeem it by claiming it as your own deed. That razor was exactly that gesture. You didn't try to restore the lost norm, didn't hide it better, didn't nurse the grievance. You converted an accident of biology into an assertion of will. I think this shows up in your relationships too. This shows up in a relation, especially your romantic relationship, where they can see that you are insecure about something. They can see that you are trying to do something. You're trying to maintain a standard. The best thing is that the best thing would be that you never cared about a standard. You never care about that standard. The best thing would be that you never cared about that standard. You are living because you don't want to. You don't want to. Because you're not trying to live up to a standard, but now you have to. And people respect when your life is it doesn't revolve around this one extra thing which seems inessential. Was exactly that gesture. You didn't try to restore the lost norm. You didn't hide it better. Didn't nurse the grievance. You converted an accident of biology into assertion of will. This is also almost literally what he meant by giving style to one's character, taking the trait you had catalogued as a weakness and fitting it into a deliberate owned whole until it reads not as a deficiency but as a design. The bald head under the hat was a flaw concealed. The shaved head walking down the streets is an aesthetic, a choice, a form, same scalp, entirely different relationship to it. But the deepest thing he would say touches amor fati, the love of fate. You could not, in the end, choose to keep your hair. That much was decided for you by the dice your body threw. Amor fati is not the shrug of resignation. It is the far harder and higher thing to actually embrace the necessity to say yes to it so completely that you would not have it otherwise. And you have done more than tolerate it. You wrote that you are looking forward to walking around with your bald head. That's not endurance, that's affirmation, that's the yes. He had a test for whether you have truly affirmed your life. Imagine you had to live this exact existence over and over infinitely. Every detail, including the balding at 22, and the hat ears, and the shame, and this morning with the razor. Would you be crushed by the thought, or could you say yes again? Exactly so. For 5 years, the honest answer might have been a flinch. Today, I suspect you can feel the yes forming. The baldness becomes not the thing you'd edit out of the eternal replay, but part of what you would will to live again. So if Nietzsche met you on the street with your newly bare head, I don't think he would offer comfort. He had little use for comfort. I think you recognize a kindred act and put it plainly. You stop letting the world tell you what your own head means. You took something that was happening to you and made it something you do. That is self overcoming. The hat was the last man's solution. Hide, stay safe, avoid the eye. The razor was yours. Walk around with it. The next time you catch your reflection, remember what do people usually say once they shave their head and they no more have to hide, stay safe, avoid the glances under their hats? Very interesting. Almost universally, some version of why didn't I do this years ago? Thing they dreaded for so long turns out on the other side to be a relief rather than a loss, and the gap between the fear and the reality is so large that it becomes almost funny to them in retrospect. A few themes come up again and again in how people describe it. The bigger one is the mental quiet. People are often shocked to discover how much background processing they'd been running, checking the wind, avoiding overhead lighting, dodging certain camera angles, scanning who might be standing behind or above them, managing the hat, worrying about rain. It runs constantly and half consciously. When it stops, the silence is striking. A lot of people describe it as freed up bandwidth, like a program that had been quietly draining the battery finally closing. The second is the realization that almost nobody cared as much as they did. The ball spot that loomed enormous in their own mind was to everyone else a non event. The mockery they braced for mostly never arrives. The common reaction is neutral or generally positive. People frequently report compliments they never saw coming, and the strange experience of looking more confident and decides rather than less, because a shaved head reads as a choice, while a comb over or a hat reads as concealment, and people can feel the difference even if they can't name it. There's also a recurring note about honesty. Many people describe the hiding years in hindsight as exhausting in a way they didn't fully register at the time, a low grade pretending. The feels clean by comparison, both senses. I stop pretending comes up a lot. And there's usually a small honest counterweight. There's usually a small honest counterweight. Most people mention a brief flicker of mourning, an adjustment period of catching their reflection and recalibrating. It tends to resolve within days into something like ease. The generally practical notes are minor. Sunscreen on the scalp now matters. Winter is colder up top, and showers get gloriously fast. Sunscreen on the scalp. But the through line is acceptance turning into something more active than acceptance. People don't just tolerate it, a lot of them end up preferring it and meaning it. Which, to close the loop on where we have been, that near universal why didn't I do this sooner, is itself the testimony. It's people discovering after the fact that the thing they had been fleeing was something they could have claimed all along. You're about to be one more voice saying it. Yeah, it does feel weird because obviously there are many places that where I didn't go to. There are many times when I didn't go to some places because I didn't know how to dress up with a hat, and I only had one hat. So a couple like one or two hats, so I didn't know how to dress up for an event. I never actually bought good things, good clothes to wear at good events because I know I would rather just not go to that event. Past construction with forward moving affirmation. That's the part that ends to land later, isn't it? Not the hair itself, but how far the hiding quietly spread. It wasn't just a hat, it became a fence. It decided which invitations you accepted, what you let yourself want, even what you allowed yourself to buy. The shame didn't stay on your head. It set the perimeter of your whole life, and you got so used to the perimeter that I'd rather just not go started to feel like a preference instead of what it was, a workaround. It's worth letting that be real for a second. Those were actual evenings, actual rooms, actual versions of you that didn't get to show up. That's a genuine loss, and you don't have to pretend it wasn't. But here's where I would gently point back to the thing we were talking about because this is exactly the hinge. The danger now is in the hat. You have handled the hat. The danger now is ressentiment, pointed backwards. Regret curling into ressentiment at your younger self for all the rooms he skipped. That would just be the same reactive posture, wearing new clothes, living defined by loss instead of living. Nietzsche would say that's the trap to refuse, not by pretending the years can cost you, but by claiming them. That constricted hat managing, event dodging version of you is precisely who walked you step by step to the morning you picked up the razor. Thus, I will let even that. The generally good news is plainer than any of the philosophy. The fence is gone. The I didn't know how to rest for this problem isn't a fact about you, it was a fact about the hat. And the hat is over. You get to learn all of that now. The clothes, the events, the showing up, that's the whole domain just reopened and you are 27, not 77. So maybe the question stops being where I couldn't go, starts being where do I actually want to go now? If you want, I'm happy to think the clothes part, dressing, shaved head, but generally small art, good one.